From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Monday underscored his administration's resolve to ensure that every peso of public money truly benefits Filipinos, warning that wastage, inefficiency, and corruption in government spending will not be tolerated. Speaking at the Philippine Development Forum, or PDF 2025, in Mandaluyong City, the President said the national budget is both a moral and economic compass that must always point toward improving the lives of citizens. President Marcos's remarks come amid his continuing campaign against entrenched corruption in public works, particularly in flood control projects. The chief executive highlighted education as the government's top investment, with the Department of Education, or DepEd, receiving the largest allocation in the proposed 2026 national budget. President Marcos Jr. said classrooms, teacher training, and school feeding programs are essential seeds towards real, lasting progress. The President also announced reforms to streamline the use of Official Development Assistance, or ODA, including revised guidelines for the Investment Coordination Committee and measures to cut bureaucratic delays. The PDF 2025, which gathered development partners and government officials under the theme Bringing Together Progress for All, Services That Matter, Results That Last, also tackled updates on the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028 and the country's transition toward upper middle income status. President Marcos said that while the forum will conclude with a joint declaration, its true value lies in real change, real impact, and real progress.
It must always point toward making life better for our people. Every project, every policy, every program, every peso must move the needle for Filipino families. So I call once again to the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, the DBM, the Department of Budget and Management, Department of Finance, and all concerned government agencies to ensure that our highest priorities, especially education, receive the appropriate funding and support. To DPWH and to the DepEd, speed up the planning and implementation process so we can meet our target of building and rehabilitating thousands of classrooms by 2028. And to DepDev, accelerate the review of PPP proposals for school buildings. No child should be forced to learn in makeshift spaces, and no teacher should be burdened by a system that does not support them. Let us prioritize the delivery of the right kind of education. So we are taking action. To streamline the process, cut bureaucratic delays, accelerate public service, we have revised the Investment Coordination Committee guidelines, the first comprehensive update in a decade. We are also introducing measures to simplify the issuance of special authority, enabling faster mobilization of assistance aligned with national priorities. Be assured that we continue to listen to the concerns and recommendations of our development partners. We are determined to go further. Declarations by themselves do not create results. They do set the direction of what our collective actions will be. Together, let us continue shaping a strong, fair, and future-ready Bagong Pilipinas.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. hailed Filipino teachers as the nation's heroes, underscoring their vital role in shaping not only the knowledge but also the character and values of the country's youth. Addressing tens of thousands of educators at the SM Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay City during the National Teachers Day culminating program, President Marcos highlighted the profound impact of teachers and students' lives. The president also cited exemplary teachers whose dedication goes beyond the classroom, noting Marivic Villacampa of Cavite, who continues to teach despite battling cancer, and Mary Jane Riodica of Laguna, who empowers students and communities through livelihood and skills training programs. President Marcos emphasized that government support is essential for teachers to fulfill their mission. The president highlighted programs including the tax-free teaching allowance under the Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act, fair teaching loads, and reduced paperwork to allow educators to focus on teaching. President Marcos Jr. also announced a 1,000 peso World Teachers Day incentive for all teachers nationwide. The chief executive noted the reallocation of more than 26 billion pesos from flood control funds to education, which will be used to improve classrooms, child nutrition, teacher compensation, and school technology.
Teachers impart far more than just knowledge. You shape lives. You mold values. And in return, you learn patience, courage, and hope from the very children that you guide. Today, as we celebrate National Teachers Day for 2025, we honor not just what you have given, but also what you have gained. The wisdom that comes from walking hand in hand with the young people of our country who will one day carry the nation forward. To recognize such service, we launched the Department of Education Heroes to honor teachers, parents, and education partners who have transformed the lives of our students. Yet we know that inspiration must be matched with action. Teachers can only fulfill their calling if the government fully supports their teachers. That is why we signed the Kabalikat sa Pagtuturo Act, granting a tax-free teaching allowance for public school teachers. This year, every teacher has already received 10,000 pesos to help cover classroom needs. We also issued DepEd Order number 005 to ensure fair teaching loads. We cannot impose, we cannot overload our teachers if they are to do the best job possible. And that is why if you exceed 6 hours of classroom instruction in a day, you will be compensated accordingly. And today, on World Teachers Day, we also provide a 1,000 peso incentive for every public school teacher. A little reminder man lang, kaunti lang paalala that we recognize your efforts and your sacrifices, and they have not gone unrecognized.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on Monday, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. emphasized that government disaster response should be immediate, sustained, and focused on helping affected communities reach stability. Speaking in his latest podcast episode, the president said quick action and continuity of support are key to easing the plight of families struck by calamities. President Marcos emphasized that disaster relief should not end once public attention fades. The Philippines, one of the most disaster-prone countries in the world, is routinely struck by typhoons, earthquakes, and volcanic activity. Recent disasters include a magnitude 6.9 earthquake in northern Cebu on September 30th and severe tropical storm Opong, which battered Masbate days earlier. The chief executive said evacuation tent cities are now being set up in Cebu to shelter residents displaced by the earthquake. President Marcos recalled how different types of calamities bring distinct challenges. While typhoons often require preemptive evacuations, earthquakes cause structural damage that leaves many residents fearful of returning indoors due to aftershocks. President Marcos Jr. said his guiding principle in response operations is simple: act quickly with compassion.
In government, the best that we can do is really to be prepared as we can possibly be, and move very, very quickly. Yeah. Just always, it's very simple for me. I'm motivated by the fact, think of the children that are in distress now. What do they need? What do we have to do? You cannot wait. Don't do it later. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. That's what I want to avoid. And that's why I made it very clear when I went to both Masbate and to Cebu. I said, this is not a one time thing. Yeah. We're here. We're going to stay here until everyone is more or less in a stable condition. The difference between, for example, a storm, a typhoon, like what happened in Masbate, and in an earthquake that happened in Cebu.
No, in Bogo City. Yeah.
Pag bagyo, we can always say preemptive evacuation, dalhin nyo sa evacuation center. Yeah. However, in after an earthquake, the main damage is infrastructure, is structure. Pagdating ng lindol, sasabihin, dalhin natin sa evacuation center. Hindi tayo nakakasiguro sa evacuation center. Oh. We have to get the engineers to come in, to inspect and see. And as a natural reaction, the people do not want to be in concrete buildings. Yeah. Baka mag-aftershock. So natatakot sila. So they prefer to stay out. We've I got the reports that in Cebu, the tent cities are starting to go up. Okay. With the help of Dick Gordon and the Red Cross. They've been very, very, very helpful.
Being President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, in the same podcast, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. warned that systematic corruption in flood control projects could derail the country's growth and deny Filipinos access to basic services, stressing that accountability and reforms are crucial to national progress. The president said his decision to raise the issue in his fourth State of the Nation address in July was driven by the magnitude of the problem. President Marcos said the impact of corruption is not only financial but also life-threatening. The chief executive said the government has already realigned 255.5 billion pesos originally allocated in the Department of Public Works and Highways flood control budget for 2026 to critical social and infrastructure services. President Marcos said past administrations allowed questionable practices by abandoning safeguards in project implementation, such as local government acceptance procedures for national projects. The president reiterated that pursuing the issue is not optional but essential to governance.
The reason I brought it up and made it part of the national discourse was quite simply because this could not go on. Yeah. Because if it kept going, we suddenly discovered how deeply entrenched this entire system was. I mean, there's always been a sniff and the suspicion of corruption in government, the different, but not the scale. That was the shocking part. And I said, nothing will happen to the Philippines if we carry on this way. Wala na talagang mangyayari sa atin. The economy will never grow properly. People are not going to get helped. The schools will not get better. The hospitals will not get better. We're not going to get anywhere. Yeah. All of these sort of things will just disappear. And we'll just be this little nation that's sort of feeding upon itself. And that's why I brought it up. And I will continue to bring it up because I do not see any point to anything that we are doing unless we move the country forward. Yeah. If we resigned ourselves to saying that, okay, well, we can't do anything, I only have 6 years. If you resign to yourself to that I can't do anything, you will not do anything.
Yeah.
And this is what we've seen over so many past decades. So I didn't want to be another one. I didn't want to be part of that kind of attitude, especially in terms of public service.
Well,
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Still on his podcast, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. said the 225 billion pesos in funds originally allotted for locally funded flood control projects in the proposed 2026 budget will instead be redirected to education, health, and other pressing needs. The president outlined where the funds will be rediverted, including the Department of Education or DepEd, which will receive an additional 26.5 billion pesos to fund primarily the construction of classrooms, 29.28 billion pesos to the Department of Health or DOH to be used for medical assistance, as well as completion of specialty hospitals, among others.
It does not mean that we have given up completely on infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because we cannot. We cannot. If we stop that, we'll stop the economy, basically. DepEd, for classrooms specifically, we are going to put 26 billion for Department of Health, 29 billion for medical assistance, UMAIP, and then the completion of all the other hospitals, the specialty hospitals that we were talking about. PhilHealth, 60 billion to increase the number of coverage, the extent of coverage. 39 billion plus will be going to the Department of Agriculture.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Malacañang on Monday brushed aside Senate Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano's call for a snap election involving all elected officials in the executive and legislative branches, calling it wishful thinking and irrelevant to the country's pressing concerns. In a Facebook post on Sunday, Cayetano proposed that the President, Vice President, Senators, and Congressmen resign and pave the way for a snap election with incumbents barred from running for one election cycle. He justified the suggestion by saying Filipinos had lost trust in government and government officials, adding that politicians are suspects. The call comes amid a sweeping investigation into alleged irregularities in flood control projects which have stirred political controversy in recent weeks. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. remains focused on governance and disaster response, particularly assisting those affected by the recent disasters. Castro urged public officials to set aside political maneuvering and prioritize the people's welfare.
Dateline Malacañang.
In a related story, Senate President Vicente Tito Soto III on Monday dismissed Senate Minority Leader Alan Peter Cayetano's proposal for snap elections to restore public trust in government, saying there's no legal or constitutional basis to hold one. In a press briefing at the Senate, Soto said he thinks it is just an opinion of a legislator, for it has no legal, constitutional basis or a framework to do that. Cayetano earlier floated the idea of a snap election covering both the executive and legislative branches, saying it would give the public a chance to start fresh following recent controversies on corruption and misuse of public funds. Soto, however, stressed that restoring trust in government depends not on resetting the political system, but on ensuring transparency in governance and accountability through the justice system. The Senate President also encouraged the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, to open its deliberations to the public to promote greater transparency. Soto added the public will regain trust once it sees that government funds are being properly used, investigations are thorough, and the courts are delivering clear and fair outcomes.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Judicial and Bar Council, or JBC, on Monday sent a short list of 7 nominees to Malacañang, from which President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will choose the next ombudsman. In a letter dated October 6 and signed by Acting Supreme Court Chief Justice Marvic Leonen, the nominees in alphabetical order are Philippine Competition Commission Chairperson Michael Aguinaldo, retired Court of Appeals Justice Stephen Cruz, Supreme Court or SC Associate Justice Samuel Garlan, Deputy Executive Secretary for Legal Affairs Ana Liza Logan, retired SC Justice Mario Lopez, Sandigan Bayan Associate Justice Michael Frederick Musni, and Justice Secretary Jesus Crispin Remulla. The new ombudsman will take over the post vacated by Samuel Martirez, whose term expired last July 27. Under the 1987 Constitution, the ombudsman, as an official critic who studies the laws, procedures, and practices in government, ensures that the steady flow of services is accorded the citizens, and a watchdog who looks at the general and specific performance of all government officials and employees. The ombudsman has a fixed term of 7 years and could only be removed from office by way of impeachment. The appointments of ombudsman and its deputies require no congressional confirmation.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Senate Committee on Finance Chairperson Senator Sherwin Gatchalian on Monday commended the Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, for its swift and innovative action in addressing the plight of distressed overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, particularly in the Middle East. During the 2026 budget hearing of the DMW and the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, or CFO, Gatchalian cited a sharp decline in the number of OFWs seeking shelter and assistance abroad. DMW Undersecretary Dominic Tutay confirmed the positive trend, noting that the number of distressed OFWs in Riyadh has decreased from 500 to 200. In Qatar from 300 to 20, and in Jeddah from 300 to 200. She said the department continues to strengthen its assistance and repatriation programs to further reduce these numbers. Gatchalian also expressed support for increasing the department's legal assistance budget to ensure that more OFWs receive proper representation abroad. DMW Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak said the agency plans to expand both its in-house and contracted legal services, aiming to double its current capacity. Gatchalian said the Senate is supporting a proposal to hire additional lawyers to give legal support to the OFWs. Created in 2022, the DMW has implemented a series of reforms to provide comprehensive protection for OFWs, including enhanced coordination with foreign posts, expanded repatriation programs, and legal assistance for workers in distress.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.